Here are some romantic suspense books that I've read recently. Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. Now for today's video, I'm going to be talking about some of my recent reads, which just so happen to be focused on the romance subgenre of romantic suspense. And I know I've created a romantic suspense recommendation video a couple months back already, but I have since yet read romantic suspense. I think I just kind of fell off that subgenre and just kind of forgot about it. Wasn't really interested in doing my research to look for new releases or to look for any old releases that I might be interested in until I did a romance live show with one of my friends here on BookTube. You may know her. Her name is Jessica from Peace Love Books. And a lot of viewers have actually commented that one of the subgenres that they don't really see a lot talked about in the book community is romantic suspense. They were very vocal about asking for recommendations for romantic suspense. And since I do read some of it this year because of a certain series that I will be talking about in this video and that I have talked about in my previous other videos. If you're a frequent watcher of my channel, you probably heard of that series already by Cynthia Eden. But I wanted to try out more romantic suspense this week. I wanted to see if I could find other books that might be 5-star reads for me, other authors that I needed to keep tabs on, and things like that. So here's just my experience by picking up some romantic suspense that I've seen on Amazon and also in my public library. So I think the first book that I'm going to talk about is actually not really a full-length book. It's a novella, and it's actually a Christmas novella. I thought that it would just be, a festive holiday read, but knowing that the author is Cynthia Eden, I should not be surprised that Cynthia Eden would incorporate suspense and mystery elements even in her novellas. Now, if you don't know who Cynthia Eden is, she is one of my new favorite authors of this year that I've heard about, but I've actually read this year and discovered. But basically, Cynthia writes a lot of romantic suspense. She used to traditionally publish with Avon Books, but she since has moved on to the indie publishing route, where she publishes a lot of books that are paranormal romance as well as romantic suspense. I think for contemporary romances, she even still adds a little bit of mystery and suspense to it. So one of the novellas that I saw on my library app was Deck the Halls, and this was a Christmas themed book. And if you guys are also new to my channel, you guys probably didn't know, I am in a huge holiday romance book binging mood. So I was just picking up a Christmas book and thinking that nothing was going to happen with this one, but it turned out to be a very lovely surprise. So this novella follows our heroine who actually works for her brother's business, but it's really a family business because she, owns a large stake of the company. She contributes a lot of her work into the company, and she's really brilliant. I think she is an engineer and she designs like toys and things like that, and her brother is behind the business side of things. But our heroine unfortunately has had her heart broken by someone in the office, and she wants to get over it, especially since it is the holiday season. She doesn't want to be alone. So when she spots Santa in the office handing out gifts to children, handing out gifts to employees of the company, she decides that she wants to be more bold. So she actually climbs onto Santa's lap and tries to seduce Santa. And the reason why she tries to seduce Santa is because Santa's extremely good looking. He is well built. He's definitely not, like the curvaceous Santa Claus that we are all familiar with. And he has amazing eyes. And our heroine actually knows who is wearing the Santa costume. And that just so happens to be our heroine's older brother's best friend. And our hero, who is pretending to be Santa Claus, is actually a private investigator or a police officer. No, he's a police officer. And he's only doing this because he's just helping out his best friend for the holidays. He definitely did not expect the one person that he's not supposed to touch and is completely off limits trying to seduce him. But after all these years and all these months just trying to ignore the fact that he's in love with his best friend's younger sister, he can't hold off anymore during this holiday season, and he must have to confess his feelings, only to find out that her evil ex is just lurking around the corner and might be doing something a little bit suspicious and mysterious on the side. So this one did have some romantic suspense elements to it, as our heroine's life was threatened a couple of times in the book, and our hero has to come and protect her during the holiday season. It was definitely a very fun, flirty, and short read that I highly recommend if you guys ever fantasize about what's underneath the Santa Claus suit. I gave this one a 4 out of 5 stars. So the next book that I want to talk about is actually a series that I have never seen before, and it's from an author that I've heard about before, that I own some books on my shelves, but I never read her books. This one is called Contract Signed by Marie Hart, and is part of the Trigger Man series. It's a trilogy. This was book number 1. I decided to just jump into book number 1 and continue on with the series if I like it. So basically, our hero is a super secret assassin. He is hired to kill people. He's a really great hitman, and he leaves no traces, and he always gets the contract complete and done. So he likes to go back home into a very small town, and it's a cabin kind of thing. He just wants some time to himself after he killed a bunch of people in different countries. And the one person he cannot stand when he goes back home is actually his next door neighbor, who is the complete opposite of him. She is a super sweet girl. She's talkative. She wants to know everybody's business, and she is lovable. Like, a lot of people like her because of her bubbly personality. He's been fighting for years to kind of push her off because he doesn't want her to know his true identity, as well as the fact that he's just crazily in love with her, or just like drawn to her, and he knows that he's too bad for her and he's not good enough. So he tries his best when he returns back home after his latest mission. He's weary, he's tired, he doesn't like his job anymore. But to his surprise, his neighbor actually walks up to him and hands him a baby and says that, you know, his ex-girlfriend has given her a baby to take care of while he was away on vacation, and then now it's his turn to take back control over the son who just, you know, came into his arms. He's confused because anytime he had any sexual relations, he made sure that everything was sealed and wrapped, but suddenly he's the father, so he doesn't believe that he is the father, and he's trying to hunt down who the real father is. He calls up his 2 best buddies, and those are our 2 heroes for the next 2 books in the series, and they all brainstorm together trying to figure out what's happening, where did the baby come from. Meanwhile, our hero and our heroine are getting to know each other a lot more while taking care of the baby, while going through dates and dinner dates, because he just wants to live a normal life now, and he is just tired of his old job and always being on the chase. But a lot of crazy things do happen. You know, our heroine's life is threatened, and our hero needs to come and protect her, because that's the whole point of romantic suspense novels, obviously. And this one, I enjoyed it because it was short, it was easy to read, and I love like the grumpy sunshine trope. That's like my catnip, that you can't go wrong with like those tropes, right? And I really enjoyed it, but there were things that kind of bothered me a lot. Now, this book was published in 2019, which isn't that long ago, but it read like this book was published in 2000s, like in the early 2000s. There's a lot of comments that I just didn't sit right with me. Like, our heroine was kind of like a quarter Japanese, and the way that the author described her looks and her appearances, I was like, is that allowed? I don't know. Like, I don't really know if that's allowed. It's not like it's offensive, but it was just like, why do we have to get in so detail about how she looks? And then there's like other instances where, you know, our heroine questioned our hero because he was like a white man, you know, liking an Asian woman. So she actually questioned him and said, am I a fetish to you? And he's like, what? No. But I was just like, is that really necessary to put in the romance novel? You know, I would have just been really content and really happy if the book just stopped at she's a quarter Japanese and just left it like that, because I know how like Asians look like. You don't need to describe it to me. But anyways, I still enjoyed it. I still would recommend you to check it out if you want a light and easy contemporary romantic suspense. So this one I gave a 3 out of 5 stars. And I actually have book 2 on my library shelf right now. So the next book that I did read was this one called The Investigator by Anna Hacket. And this was book number 1 in the Norcross Security series. And this one follows the same idea. So I really like romantic suspense when it's really heavy on contemporary themes and then really light on romantic suspense. That's just my vibe. I also also was in the mood for a lot of protective heroes during this like week where I read a lot of romantic suspense. So if you are a seasoned romantic suspense reader and you don't like that and you want a strong female heroine who could do her dirty fights, who can protect the hero as well, then sorry, like I don't really have any recommendations for you, or I don't review those books in this video, so I apologize for that already. But this one follows that similar trope that I just described that I liked, where our heroine is a museum curator, and she's, you know, she has a really high profile job where she's taking care of a lot of like really priceless paintings and artifacts. But then what happens is that she's strolling through her museum and then she sees her bodyguards are like, you know, hurt, and she automatically knows that she's in danger because somebody is trying to rob the museum, and now she is like fighting for her life, trying not to die while also to try to protect these paintings, because hello, she really cares about art. She just doesn't care about, like, she cares about her job too, but her art like comes first. The art gets stolen, obviously, and in comes our hero, who is the founder of this security like firm called Norcross Security, because that's his last name. And now he is her bodyguard and he follows her around all the time and make sure that she's not going to get kidnapped or killed, because apparently she knows like a lot of these secrets, and she knows like things that could put her into danger. And our hero is more than happy to comply to be the bodyguard because he's secretly been obsessed with her ever since he laid his eyes on her. And it's kind of like insta love too as well, or it's not insta love, but it felt like insta love because, you know, there's like a whole chunk of their relationship where they already were friends with each other, where they were talking with each other, that we didn't see, that we just kind of jumped into, and we felt that our hero was deeply, madly in love with her, but just didn't know how to say it because he is the same stoic character that just can't express his emotions properly. So that kind of felt like it was like okay. I just didn't feel like it was enough build up to it. It wasn't what I was looking for. I was looking for like a slow burn romance where our hero and heroine get to know each other and then fall in love. Other than that, I thought the suspense elements of it was just a little too flashy. There was a lot of like weird action scenes in it where a heroine keeps getting kidnapped, where there's just like a lot of dumb things started happening. So I was kind of bored by it too as well, since a lot of the things I couldn't emotionally connect to, and especially since our characters, I don't really care for them. So this one I gave an average 3 out of 5 star rating. I tried reading book number 4 for another video already, and I didn't like the writing. I felt like the writing was just not for me, so I gave up on book number 4, and now book number 1 I'm giving it 3 out of 5 stars. So I don't think I'll be continuing on with this series. And looking at the reviews on Goodreads, a lot of people really like Anna Hacket, and the fans even said that this is not one of her best works. Now the next book that I want to talk about is one from Tessa Bailey. This one is an old one. This one was published in 2013 when she was still doing like those like little novellas with like Entangled, and since then she has like progressed to Avon Books. This one's called Protecting What's His, and it's Line of Duty series book number 1. I honestly walked in this one with no real expectations, mostly because it's a short book, and I realized that if it's too short, the love is too insta, and I just don't really like that. I love insta love novellas, don't get me wrong, but when it's like trying to be a full length novel but not really, and it's insta love, it's hard to buy. Like, it's hard for me to buy it. But anyways, our heroine has been dealt with a bad set of cards. Basically, she was poor and she just doesn't have enough money to take care of her sister, and then she finds a big bag of money, and now she just has all this money and she knows that she can do wonders with it. So she runs off with this bag of money, finds herself a nice apartment, finds herself like, you know, some stable ground to do whatever she needs to do. But the problem is that her next door neighbor is a very grumpy, grouchy guy that she doesn't really get along with because of like noise complaints. Like, she makes a lot of noise and our hero doesn't like it because after a long day at work as, I believe, a police officer, if I remember correctly, he wants peace and silence. He doesn't want like a feisty, good-looking girl like down the hallway from him. So he's left flustered and he turns into kind of like an a-hole when he's ever around her. So definitely he's not impressing her already, but they start to build a friendship together and they start to get to know each other. They start dating each other, and then, you know, secrets have to be revealed because she knows deep down she's not telling the whole truth. She's lying to him about her origins and she's lying to him about her financial situation. Meanwhile, our hero is very kind and considerate and is like taking it all in, not judging, and things like that. And then there's obviously some little hints of romantic suspense elements to it towards the end, where our heroine was in danger and our hero had to kind of step up the plate. Now, because this book is only 200 pages, I felt like that there were a lot of things that were really wham bam, like very rushed. Like it was just dun 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 dun, like no breaks, no pauses. And it was kind of a little bit disorientating when I was listening to the audiobook. I wish there was like slower pacing, slower scenes where we got to have some character development with our characters, or at least get to know our characters well, instead of just really hot sensual scenes. Now, this book, written by Tessa Bailey, and if you guys don't know who Tessa Bailey is, she writes a lot of steamy novels, so of course she had to add a bunch of steamy scenes in this book. But I felt like that there was just too much steam and not enough plot for me to give it a higher than a 3 out of 5 star rating. Now, the next book that I want to talk about is actually another one from Cynthia Eden. Like literally, Cynthia Eden is the author that I lean towards to, that I go towards to for romantic suspense, just because she has written a lot. I know there are a lot of other seasoned romantic suspense authors I need to try out, but I've just been diving into Cynthia Eden for now. So this one is part of her series called the Lost series, and it's book number 1 called Broken. And this one follows our hero, who is part of a team called the Lost team, and he's like the founder of it. He's an ex-SEAL. He knows what he's doing. He's really big, bad, and he can, fight. What happens is that our heroine barges into his office and demands him for help because she just doesn't know who she is anymore. She had an injury to the head, had amnesia, but she knows that she's in danger because of the flashing memories that she have as being held captive, as held of like having some crazy person run towards her with a knife, trying to drown her in the freaking ocean. And like, there's just like a lot of things that are happening in her life that she knows that she needs help with, or else she's gonna die. And she's trying to figure out her identity with the help of our hero and his team of special operations people. And they start piecing things together, piecing back her life, and they start to think that like maybe she is like the heiress of like this long lost like company, not long lost company, but like this big company, and like the family who is like super wealthy, for some reason like they don't think that she is like the long lost daughter, and they have arguments with her all the time saying that she's a gold digger. Meanwhile, she's just like, I'm just trying to piece my life together. Meanwhile, there's also like a lot of threats happening and our hero has to protect her. Now this one, I think it was just the narrator of the audiobook, but it sounded a lot like a thriller novel instead of a romantic suspense novel. The way that the narrator was narrating the story felt like I couldn't trust anybody, nor like the hero. I felt like everybody was unreliable, including our heroine, which is like super weird, and it definitely took me out of my enjoyment factor of this book. But also, it was just a lot more darker than I expected. I thought it would be sweeter and lighter, but it wasn't. It weighed down on my emotions a lot, and I felt a little bit icky when I was listening to it, because I was just like, oh my god, there's like this serial killer out there targeting her because of her looks, and like is killing a lot of girls that look exactly like her. And I'm just like nervous now, and I was just kind of like always pausing and going back to the audiobook because I just couldn't sit through it. And then I felt like that the romance happened way too fast. Our hero was immediately infatuated with our heroine, wanted to be with her like every minute of the day, and she was clinging on to him too because she was so vulnerable and so scared. And I was just like, okay, like I get it, but also I don't like how this is progressing so quickly. So this one, I gave it a 3 out of 5 stars. It definitely wasn't my favorite. I also have a lot of the books in the series on my shelf, so I don't know what I'm going to do with them. I don't know if I'm going to continue with the series or not. Definitely I'll have to consider it in the future. All right, so the last book that I want to talk about is actually my most anticipated read. It's like the read that I forgot about, actually. Like I checked my Kindle, I pre-ordered it, and then I checked my Kindle randomly one day and I saw that this book was on my shelf, and I was like, oh my god, it got released already. But it's book number 4 in Trouble for Hire series called Remember Ramsey by Cynthia Eden. And now if you have been watching my videos, you would know that I've been talking about Trouble for Hire for a lot of videos. I've recommended book number 1, 2, and 3, and now I'm going to talk about book number 4, the book that I have been waiting for. This one follows Ramsey, who is is not a good person. He is not, an ex-military person. He wasn't fighting for the good. He was actually fighting on the bad side. He is like a crime boss. I wouldn't say he's a mafia like leader, but I would say that he has a lot of people following him, a lot of criminals who will kill for him, and a lot of people who have done bad things for him because they don't want to wrong him, because he has this like giant like network of connections. What happens is that he owns this bar, and this really beautiful, striking woman walks into his bar and asks him to be like her protector for the night as she sits in the bar and studies all these criminals for her research project, because she is a criminal psychologist in a university and she's doing a research paper. And Ramsey is completely infatuated with her, and they actually start to have a really sweet relationship until one day she just disappears and she never comes back. And our hero, Ramsey, is left devastated, thinking that she finally smartened up and realized that he is too bad for her and that she needs to run away, and she's actually frightened by him. So Ramsey's left heartbroken until one day this team of guys from the Trouble for Hire series, including his brother, tell him that, your ex-girlfriend might have been actually kidnapped, and like we found her again and she's alive. But the problem is that she lost her memory for the last 6 months, which is like the entire span of their relationship, and she no longer remembers you. And Ramsey's left devastated, but he's thinking like, this is a good thing because she's blocking out all these like memories of him. So then now she can live a normal life without him, and, his bad things won't taint her good life. But our heroine is very stubborn, really wants to get to know Ramsey a lot, wants to know what was their relationship, and keeps pestering him throughout this whole book. And the reason why she's doing it is because there's this really pressing matter that she wants to figure out really quickly, because it's like a time-sensitive matter. And meanwhile, someone is stalking our heroine again, leaving things behind on her porch, deliberately setting her house on fire, and threatening her secretly about how she really needs to run away from Ramsey. And Ramsey is in complete chaos. He's so angry that someone's threatening his girl that he's destroying the whole city looking for the stalker. And our 3 guys from the first 3 books in this series, from the Trouble for Hire firm, tries to help Ramsey solve this case. And obviously Ramsey also has his own background with the police, and he might be in trouble of actually being put in jail for all those crimes that he has done in the past. This one, I gave it a 4.5 out of 5 stars, but I rounded it up to 5 stars on Goodreads. I absolutely adore this series. This one just didn't really fall into the plot that I was expecting, as the first 3 books alluded to, because they mentioned Ramsey in like book number 1 all the way to 3, and I thought that like it would be a little bit more angsty. I thought that our heroine would needed to do, some like more emotional work, but then also have Ramsey kind of grovel and like apologize a lot to our heroine for like, the things that he did to try to push her away. And I felt like that they could have stretched it out a bit longer of him pushing her away, but he just always kind of fell back into her hands all the time very quickly. So it was good. It was fine, but we could have turned up the angst a little bit more. But anyways, I really enjoyed this one, and I definitely recommend you to check out the series if you're into romantic suspense with a lot of contemporary, a lot of hot, sexy scenes, and light romantic suspense elements, I guess. Anyways, that is it for all the books I have read this week that include romantic suspense elements to it. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll see you guys next time. Oh, also, if you guys do like romantic suspense, and if you do have recommendations that are heavy on contemporary but light on romantic suspense, let me know in the comments down below, because I'm still looking for more reads to read for this year. Bye.